Welcome to another episode of the Quip and Convo segment. My guest today is someone that I met. Okay, met would be the wrong word. I sat in on a webinar she had, and I was struck by the things she said. When you see her bio, you may have an idea of what I'm saying. I look forward to you joining us in the Quip Corner. See you in a bit. Welcome to the Quip and Convo segment of the Quip Corner with Ada Chris.
Hi, how are you, Ada? Nice to see you today.
Yes, likewise. It was a pleasure listening to your course and then reaching out to you. And then you said you didn't mind being a guest on the show. So thank you for doing that.
I love your positive energy and your positive spirit and the way that you enhance conversations by bringing some of your quips to life. And so I was honored to be a part of it. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So let's dig in. I had sent you a couple quips, but I was like, why don't we do something from my most recent book? And you chose Quip 27, which says, your destination will always be a distant desire until you make a decision and take steps in the right direction. Okay, tell us more.
Yes, well, this was so inspiring to me when I saw this quip and I started to kind of get my thoughts together for our conversation today, because I think it really relates to anyone who is everything from a parent to a professional to an artist. This quip really applies to everyone, and it applies to both our personal lives and our professional lives. And so it inspires me when I read this quip because it reminds me of the things that I need to pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And I think about the fact that, we probably all at some point have had something that was a desire, this destination that we wanted to get to in our lives. Yeah. Maybe it's, a mindset that you wanted to achieve, or a relationship that you were trying to create, or a business that you want to start, or a book you want to write, or, there's an endless combination of things. And sometimes it feels like the challenge is that getting from here to there is not always obvious. And over the journey that you're traveling to try and get to that dream that you have, you're inevitably going to be faced with some sort of challenges or obstacles, which frankly is inevitably part of your learning, right? But yes, it can be an invitation to deter us. And so I think we can be harsh on ourselves when that happens, and it can, knock us down and make us think, well, maybe we aren't supposed to do this. Yeah. But this idea of keeping this dream and this destination in mind is, I think, something everyone can relate to. And I feel like there's stages of this, which is that I think you first start talking about it. Saying a dream that you have out loud begins the process. Once you say it out loud, you sort of are accountable now to yourself and whoever you're talking to, that this is something that you're owning, that you're really hoping is in your future, and that you're saying that you want to do. And there is a certain amount of that is really helpful in that I'm a person who processes when I talk. And so for me, sometimes, I take a daily walk with my husband and we talk through our day. And I realize sometimes during that conversation that I'm realizing things that I didn't think about when it was in my head. Okay. But the problem is you can often then take that too far and talk too long, and then talking just becomes a distraction from actually doing. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But I have a question, just before I lose that thought. You said that it's important to, say it out loud, and sometimes that helps you become accountable.
Yeah.
what about dream killers? Because there are times when you say something out loud and people are like, huh? Who do you think you are? What makes you think you? I mean, yeah, other people, but you? So how do you deal with that?
That's a really important point, and I'm really glad you brought it up because I would say this, you have to be discerning about who you decide to share that with. In that some people should not be entitled to have access to knowing what some of your dreams are if you don't trust them to be supportive. I think all of us probably have created friends or family or support communities that we have that we feel safe in, that we can
Yeah.
say it out loud. Because once you've released it and said it, now you've sort of stated a vision of who you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Again, let's say you say, well, I want to be a business owner. You're absolutely right to have someone else say, oh, how are you possibly going to do that? Is a very bad way to start that process. So you do want to have discernment and identify people that are just as big of dreamers as you are, that are going to embrace your dream and say, okay, let's talk about how we can make that happen, and that are going to want to help you. And I'm sure you've played that role for other people, Ada, through your show in particular. You've helped to support people in some of the dreams that they want to create.
Mm-hmm.
And you're absolutely right. That is a key part of it, is deciding who you're going to share that with and who
Yeah.
you want to help own that dream that you have. So and
that's
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
No. And what is involved also is then you're going to do some research, right? You're going to say, well, I want to start this business, or I want to, change your profession, or you want to go
Mm-hmm.
back to school. You go kind of from talking to doing some research and really understanding what you're up against. And
Yeah.
those processes are important, but you have to make sure that you don't overextend them, because then you're just sort of going down rabbit holes of talking and reading and studying and not actually doing some
Doing.
things to make
Yeah.
to move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really valid.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting that you said, share it with someone who you believe can help you. But with how busy everybody is,
Yeah.
should people look for people who are equally busy or not as busy? Because like they say, if you want something done, give it to a busy person.
I was going to quote the exact thing back to you, Anna, because, for a long time, I was part of a women's business owners group.
Yeah.
And I found that was actually a great place to share things like that, because
Okay.
these were fellow women who were also pursuing ideas that they had for business. They would never think to criticize you. They would sort of say, I have a friend that I think could help you. And so you often want to find those communities. And I would say, you're right, busy people don't really get deterred. Busy people who have big dreams don't want to deter you, and they don't get deterred from trying to help you wherever they can. And they're connected.
Mm-hmm.
They know people. How many times has there been these fluke conversations you have that lead you to someone who can help unlock some parts of the journey that you're going to be taking?
Yeah.
And so that's why there's also some value in saying it out loud, is that now that you've said it out loud, you're going to attract other people who may have some insight into how you've achieved that, or how they've achieved that.
Yeah.
If you decide, for example, you want to write a book, or you decide, I've had some family members who recently walked the Camino Trail in Europe. They connected with other people who had done it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of their research to do that. And so that's why once you put it out in the universe, I sort of believe that then the universe sends you what you need, as long as you keep engaged in that process, right?
Yeah.
And I think what comes next then depends on what the goal is, but the key part is that we have to stay out of the someday trap, which is, if you start a sentence by saying, well, someday I'd really like to go back to school and get my chef certification, right? And someday is this sort of mystical place
Yes.
that we feel like is far away. And the key, I think, and part of what we're talking about this quip, is that you have to take steps in the right direction. And those steps have to be now. So someday has to become now. You have
Yeah.
to bring someday into the present
Yeah.
and find a way to say, okay, if I want someday to look like that, what do I have to do today?
What am I doing today?
Yeah.
Yes.
And that is really the key. So
Uh-huh.
let's say, you decide, I just had a friend of mine who went back and got her nursing degree in her 50s, went back and got her nursing degree. And I remember
Yes.
hearing her talk about the fact that she was going to do it. And she started the classes and
Hmm.
she just got her pin to have her
Yeah.
nursing
Yeah.
degree. You have to take some sort of step. That
Mhm.
might mean going and visiting a school that has the classes that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Or let's say that you decide you want to be a chef, going under and starting to visit some of the schools that do that. You have to start taking some steps that will continue to tell you if this is indeed the path that you want to be on. Because once you do that investigation, what is the hard part about this is, what if you get a certain amount down the road and then
Mhm.
you realize, oh gosh, this isn't what I thought. I'm actually not sure. And
Yeah.
you feel sort of sad. There's some grief when this dream that you had, you say, I'm really not sure that that is what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
But you always have to remember that either way,
Mhm.
it's good. Because if you find out it's not what you want, fine, then refocus on another dream that you have. Everyone's
Yeah.
got a dream, right? But if it is, then you're going to be so grateful to yourself that you took those steps.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example of some of the things that I have sort of walked the talk on this. I have always written, articles, and I've always written blogs and things like that. But I really made the shift about a year ago that I wanted to identify more as a writer and actually
Mhm.
write something that I could publish. And I've talked about it for years. And what I find, Anna, is the breaking point for me is when I get tired of my own stories.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of hearing myself say, oh, I'd really like to such and such, or boy, I hope someday I can really get a book published. And at some point, it's like I see myself saying it and
Yeah.
saying, well, do something,
Already.
you know? And so about a year ago, I started to sit in on some workshops that some writers I know were having so
Yeah.
that I could start to understand really walking the path of a writer.
Mhm.
And that's really what you have to do. If you say, I'm now going to internalize this idea that I'm a writer, I'm not going to
Yes.
just say someday I'd like to be, I'm going to say, I'm going to
I
walk
am.
a writer. So if I was a writer, when I get up this morning, what does a writer do? A writer needs to write every day, let's say.
Yeah.
And I started putting myself in these communities of writers. And now I have 2 groups a week that I sit in, that we come on Zoom together and we write. And we just have the Zoom cameras on and the microphones off. And it is 4 hours a week that is specifically for writing and writing the
Wow.
specific piece that I'm working on. It has been transformational. And I'm
Wow.
finally walking the path that I've been talking about for a long time. But I had to immerse myself. I had to put
Mhm.
myself on the path.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were spot on when you were talking about someday, because I remember reading something where it said, someday is not a day of the week.
That's so well said. I 100% agree. It is a trap. It really is, because I think, and you've met people who something comes out on the market, something gets invented, and someone says, "I've had that idea for years."
Yeah.
But if you don't take the steps to actually do it, someone else is going to come out with that,
Yep.
right? So you
Yep.
have to try, and it is being very self-aware. You have to
Mhm.
be watching yourself having these dialogues and finally calling yourself out on your own, stories and
Yeah.
saying, okay, but if I want to do that someday, what am I doing today? If I have a number of friends who, would like to be in a relationship. If you would like to be in a relationship, what are you doing today? Are you, going to things to meet people? How are you trying to start that process? I frankly had that when I decided to pursue my coaching certification many years ago, because I
Yeah.
was formally doing coaching with people. And finally I thought, I really need to make this official. I need to
Mhm.
really own and honor the fact that I'm doing coaching. And
Yeah.
finally classes and did all the work that I had to do to get my coaching certification.
Mhm.
And, you know, finally actually did it. But I had to take those steps. And it
Yeah.
was scary because I thought, well, maybe this isn't right for me. But you have to take the steps to find out.
Yeah.
So that it's not a someday that you regret, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Well, thank you so much. You've said so much, and I'm sure we could go on for another half hour, but I'd like to now invite you to come to the Quip and Convo segment again, maybe in a couple months, not like tomorrow,
Yeah.
but in a couple months, if you don't mind.
I would love to, because I find that what you're doing is very inspirational, and I would really be honored to pick another of your quips. Either you can pick it or I will. You know, sometimes not all of us have time to read a 300-page book, but they can sit and watch your show and have a little nugget that hopefully can inspire them if they're having a bit of a tough week.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because one of the reviews I got on my first book was someone said they have it on their desk, and now and again, it's like, okay, I need to pick me up. And they're like, okay, let's just read one. And they're like, okay, I'm fine for now. I'll be back.
And so you've walked the path of a writer. I don't know what your particular challenges were, but almost every writer I know has something that kind of prevents them from continuing to get it done. And hopefully you had some good support on the way.
Yes, I have had good supports, prodding included, but yes.
I get it. I get it. Yeah. So yes, you're a multi-book publisher. You know of what I speak.
Yes, I sure do. Well, thanks again, Chris, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I always enjoyed having a conversation with you, Anna. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. That was a nice conversation with Chris. What do you think? Yes, you need to take steps. Talking and talking and talking and talking is not going to get you anywhere. In fact, signature on my husband's email is your future starts today. So what's that thing you want in your future? Like Chris said, more than twice. What are you doing about it today? I'd love to read your comments and questions, maybe. Until the next episode, you take care. Bye now.